Okay, and we're live. Thank you so much for being here, Jerome.
Oh, no problem.
I know that you're super busy with tax season, so your time is very valuable.
Thank you. I'm sure you got a lot of things going on. I value your time as well.
I do, and I've actually been subscribed to your YouTube channel for a few years now. I have seen your Millennial Money video.
Yeah.
I loved that, and I remember when your channel was called Black Vito.
Yeah, I changed it I just put my name in Spanish I like Spanish, so you know, I just switched it up. Um I don't know. I just wanted to just remove the
Yeah,
I just wanted
I like
something that
I
reflects
liked
me.
it though. Both names are great, just so you know. Black Vito gave me like a Sopranos vibe.
Yeah, I got it from Vito Corleone from Godfather. Really, the second Godfather was to me was very interesting in the way that, and also a lot of the things that he said in the movie, I think were wise, just wise things, and especially in the second movie when it was like young Vito Corleone, and he's like kind of rise through the ranks of this poor Italian community, and then he went from being this poor kid and he worked his way up, and there was this guy, Italian guy, he was like bullying all the other Italians, and he was like, "Why do you bully other Italians?" So he got rid of that guy in a not so pleasant manner, and and then he started doing good for the community. He walked through the community and try to help people out, and I just felt that was in an overall. I mean, he's still a mobster or whatever, but overall, I thought it was pretty nice. But also, I think that's another reason why I liked it. It was just kind of like a kind of shows that I'm not all rainbow and sunshines.
I like that, and I like your name, and that's a great movie to draw inspiration from.
Yeah.
So it's really funny because I named my personal brand Millennial Money Mom, partly inspired because of the Millennial Money videos.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you why you named your channel what you named it, because that's always interesting to figure out why people name their channel what they name it.
Yeah, so funny story right there. And I went through a phase where I loved to watch those Millennial Money videos. Um, I haven't watched them in a really long time, though. I don't know if they're still doing them.
I think they are still doing them, kind of. I think they're kind of like doing them, but they're also kind of doing like other things similar to them. Like, oh, look at this person in Italia or Italy. For some reason, I always say Italy in Spanish.
It's
But anyway,
Spanish.
yeah,
English.
it is a habit that I can't get out of. But anyway, um, yeah, but yeah, I think they're doing stuff like that. Like, oh, well, what is it like living in Mexico on 50,000 a year or whatever?
Oh,
Like,
I did see that actually.
yeah, it's a interesting. I mean, I think it's interesting direction. Sometimes I still watch it. Just it can be somewhat inspirational to hear some different stories, but a lot of it, I I have a hard time relating to someone making $700,000 a year from their I don't know,
Tech job.
their tech job or their bakery business or whatever the case may be. Like you know, I've never done that. So to me, it can be inspirational hearing someone's humble beginnings to something less humble. But at the end of the day, it's I don't know. It can be a little bit hard to relate to in a way.
For sure, there's a dynamic range on there, and sometimes it's shocking to see.
Yeah, very much dynamic. I don't know. But I still like watching it though. I started watching it more so through Graham Stephan and through Graham Stephan I started watching, and actually that's when I I actually applied to it is because I saw, Graham Stephan would do reaction videos and things like that, and I was like, oh, let me see if I can apply. I didn't think there was no chance in my mind in the world that I would have gotten accepted to something like that. But yeah, have you ever been on Millennial Money? I don't know, but I was just asking because your name.
Oh, no.
Okay, yeah. Have you ever applied?
No. Should I?
I mean, hey, if you have a story, like I didn't think they would accept me, so if you have a story they might be interested, I don't think it hurts to give it a shot.
Sometimes I get really nervous to share my story and talk about myself, but doing these lives and doing YouTube videos definitely helps because I know it's important.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think that I kind of was thinking about maybe just stop making finance videos just because for a few different reasons, but or finance, accounting, and economic type videos. But I think I'm probably going to get back into it, especially certain types of tax videos that you know I think I'll probably continue to do that.
Yes, especially if your message is to help others. And I know your videos have inspired people. And I think it's important to put content and education out there. And we have a few live viewers. So, hi, if anybody wants to ask questions, please feel free to shoot them our way.
Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty interesting. I've never done this before. I've never done like a simultaneous to this website. I like it. I like it a lot.
On StreamYard?
Yeah, on StreamYard. Yeah,
I thought you used StreamYard
I
actually.
use StreamYard, but I've never done like a simultaneous cast with somebody. It's nice. It's a very interesting feature, I would say.
Well, so part of one of the things that I want to do more of in the new year is this, and I want to get my money's worth for my StreamYard subscription. So,
Yeah, this is something that I'm definitely going to try to do more of myself. It seems like a really good way to go about doing it. To me, I look at it like with my YouTube channel, I kind of look at it like since my channel is monetized, if I can just at minimum earn enough money to cover the costs of doing it, which seems like it's doable, then I'll keep doing it. If I'm spending more money than I'm putting in constant year after year, especially after so many years doing it, I think I'm probably just going to tap out.
it seems like you have a passion for it, though.
Yeah, definitely a passion. I think my biggest passion is talking, and everyone around me probably wish I talked a little bit less. So I think this is a way that I can talk, and people can listen to me at their own will.
Absolutely. And I know I love listening to lives. So, proactive progression says, is it true that getting a tax return is a bad thing, or is it better to a small and or owe the IRS? Uh,
Uh, I think that's a good question. Or is it better to get a small return? Um, well, I guess it depends on a variety of factors. I think. Well, let me put it. Let me just put it to you like this: if you're going just pure like Homo economicus, like the rational, being as rational as possible, like optimizing for the maximum amount of wealth possible, then yes. In fact, it doesn't only make sense to get a small refund, it makes sense to actually owe as much as you can possibly owe without having to pay a penalty. And on top of that, it may even make sense to owe, even though you're going to have to pay a penalty, if the penalty is going to cost you less than what you could make while you get to hold on to that extra money. That's probably not the safest tax advice, but I'm just looking at it from a pure like Homo economicus. You're trying to be the most logical as you possibly can. Then it might actually make sense. I mean, especially with higher income people, I see that happen a lot where they owe like every single year, but like not like maybe like middle income of the higher, like middle upper income, like maybe, and maybe I'm not even saying this right, but like maybe above 500,000 but less than 2 million range. uh a lot of the times if they're working like a regular W2 job, and they don't have like some type of business or thing, like that money's just straight coming from a W-2, they'll end up owing money a lot of the times because they're not withholding enough money. But if they are not paying a penalty, then why does it even matter? I would rather hold on to my money and pay the government at the end of the year. I have until April 15th to pay them. So if I can owe, I don't know, 20, $30,000, I'm making $500,000 a year, and I can pay, them $30,000 at the end of the year, and I don't have to pay any penalty on that money because, depending on a variety of factors, you might not have to pay any interest or penalties. I would rather do that. And like I said before, if you owe a penalty, and let's say the penalty is $1,000, but as a result of you holding on to that money, you earned an additional $2,000 in after considerations of tax, then then that would be worth it, obviously. I mean, that's just like simple math. But at the end of the day, that is not the advice that I would probably give to somebody. If someone literally sat down and asked me, like, well, what is the best to do? I would say uh, probably it's best to owe no more than about $1,000. Typically you want to owe money, but you want to owe $1,000. That would be ideal for like maximizing uh, your financial situation.
I
Now,
completely agree.
yeah, but the average person, I don't think is responsible enough to do that. That's kind of like having a credit card. So it's like, can you be responsible enough to handle this credit card? Well, probably a lot of people can't. So it's kind of like when people say Dave Ramsey, like a lot of people don't like Dave Ramsey because he'll tell people to not use credit cards, even though you get all these benefits from the points and all of that. But you only get benefits from the points if you're being responsible with the credit cards and you're not spending more money than you otherwise would have with, I don't know, like a debit card or cash. So it really comes down to, are you going to be responsible with that, responsible enough to when it comes due, that $1,000 you're going to actually pay it, and you're going to pay it on time. uh always hear the statistic, everyone says it, I don't even know if it's true, like everyone says the statistic, no one drops their original source, the source material, but they say that a lot of them, like some percentage of Americans don't even have $400 to allocate, or a lot of Americans don't even have $1,000 to allocate to, like, in an emergency situation. So advising the average American that, hey, listen, you should owe at least $1,000 every single year so that you won't have to pay a penalty, but you won't be letting the government borrow your money for free. I don't know if that would be sound advice, considering that most human beings are not homo economicus, meaning they're not completely rational optimizing machines. Uh, yeah, that was a
Yeah.
little bit long way winded, but yeah.
I love that, and you actually described my personal tax strategy that I've been doing for the past several years, and you're right, unfortunately, most people, they don't have the discipline to do that, and I believe that the majority of people, they wanna get the maximum return. Like, if someone gets a $10,000 return, they're so happy. They're like, "Wow, I just got $10,000." But other people, like myself, might see it as, "Wow, I could have had that $10,000 all year long. I just gave the government an interest-free loan."
Yeah. A lot of people will say they use it as a savings account, and I'm like, this is the worst savings account that that you could ever have. You have a savings account that you can't access in the case of emergency. You Once you get the money, it's going to feel like this big windfall of free money. Like it has weird psychological effects when you give the government your money, and then you get the money back, and you're like, oh, this is free money. But here's the thing, this is actually another interesting thing that I always like to remind people, is that a lot of the times you have people who have no knowledge about tax, and they'll think, oh, well, the refund is the government giving me money. And then you get other people who know a little bit about tax, and they'll say, well, a refund is just you getting your own money. And that's like, no, 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 because I was that person before as well. Sometimes a refund is actually the government giving you money.
Because of credits, correct?
Exactly. Exactly. There are people who pay nothing in taxes. Well, maybe they pay Social Security and Medicare taxes, FICA taxes throughout the year, or self-employment taxes, but they pay nothing in taxes throughout the year, and then they still get money back. they have nothing withheld, and they can still get money back. It's possible, especially during the pandemic. During the pandemic, there was tons of
Child
people,
tax credit. Mhm.
dependent care credit. There were people getting back $10,000 to $20,000. It was crazy. And I'm not saying crazy like in a bad or good way. I'm not putting a value judgment on it. I'm just saying it was shocking.
For sure. And we have another question. Hi, could you please explain how the tax credit might not be the right term for military moves works?
Can you explain how the
So
tax credit?
relocation in the military, possibly?
Let me see how can you explain how the tax credit might not be the oh might not oh he's referring to the for military moves works. Yeah, that would yeah, tax credit probably wouldn't be the right word in that. It would probably be tax deduction. If you in the military and you move uh under the certain circumstances, and it's like, directed obviously by the military, you might be able to take certain deductions on my memory of every single form might not be always the best, but I'm pretty sure it's 2106, the form. But if you're using the software, you just go down to the military deductions, and most people are not allowed to write off their moves. But if you're in the military and you're ordered to move by the military, you can pay for your move, and generally you can pay for the move of your family and maybe even some of your belongings, which like a pet might count as a belonging under certain circumstances. So it will be basically a deduction, meaning the difference between a deduction and a credit, which is important for this question to understand, is that a deduction effectively decreases your taxable income. So just throwing simple math out there, if you have $50,000 of taxable income, or well, you have $50,000 of income, and then you have a $10,000 deduction, that will reduce your taxable income to $40,000. And now you're only getting taxed on $40,000. Whereas a tax credit is a dollar for dollar decrease in your taxes. So, for example, if you have $50,000 of income, same example, but you have a $10,000 credit, which is ridiculous. You but it's possible. You have a $10,000 credit, you would basically have a $10,000 decrease in your taxes. Now, some tax credits, a dollar for dollar decrease in your taxes. So you'll still be getting taxed on $50,000, but that whatever the ending tax would be, let's just say your taxes end up being $5,000. Well, you would have that tax credit eliminate that $5,000, and you would have another $5,000 of credit left over. Sometimes you have refundable tax credits and you have non-refundable tax credits. Refundable tax credits is like what I said before, the government giving you money. And non-refundable credits are credits where you basically, if you don't use it, typically you lose it. Sometimes they get carried forward to the future or the past with certain credits. There's so many different types of credits on the federal and state level. But the point is, though, with this particular question, you would basically write it off on the taxes on your software. Now, if you are having someone do your taxes for you, you just let them know that you're in the military, you moved, and you want to take that deduction. If you're someone if you're doing your own taxes, usually the software will have in the tax deduction section. Most softwares are pretty similar in how they're set up, and they'll have like in the deduction section, you just scroll down to find moving expenses, and you should be able to put it in there. Let them know you're military. Let it was known it was required by the military that you move.
And you mentioned software a few times. I'd love to know your thoughts on TurboTax.
Well, without going too much into detail, I think uh, I might have some biases in that regard. But I would say that TurboTax is a good software. I personally use TurboTax. However, just being completely honest, like I said, I might have some biases that I wish not to disclose. But I would say that It is definitely. I personally use the software. I like the software, and especially sometimes depending on the situation, they will offer free uh, uh, usage of the
Sign
software.
in. Mhm.
They might charge for like an e-file sometimes, but generally speaking, for like certain simpler tax returns, it'll be free. I think last time I checked, they had like an $89 offer for like simple tax return prepared by a full, like what they call a full service person, basically someone doing taxes for you. I think that it's interesting that what they're doing with their like doing like online tax preparation for people. They have full service and they have that. So I like it. However, with that being said, uh, there's a lot of free options that people have, and they should look to see if they qualify for those. They should look to see if those options offer everything that they need prior to going to a paid option. Or and I'm not just talking about TurboTax. I'm also talking about TaxSlayer and H&R Block software, like any software, because a lot of the times these softwares they suck you in, and then you end up trying to they you end up paying for something along the way, that if you went to one of these like free file, I think it's like freefileamerica.com or something like that. Oh yeah, free tax USA. Well, free file America. Well, that's what I was referring to, free tax USA. And I think the IRS has some software, but I hear the IRS software is, I hear some people say they like it, some people that say they don't like it. I don't know. But free tax USA, I heard good things about that. You do your taxes for free or close to free, depending on the major. What does this person say? You do have to pay for state, but federal is good. Yeah. And if you live in one of the approximately 5 to 6 states without state income tax, or with basically no state income tax, uh, then you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Good point. And I will share a little bit of my experience. I was actually studying to become a CPA. My employer was paying for it. I'm now self employed, so I don't have that luxury anymore. But then I realized not all CPAs do taxes. And if I'm really passionate about learning tax law and doing taxes, maybe I don't want to become a CPA. Maybe I should be an EA, which you are, an enrolled agent who is actually a tax expert.
Yeah.
I'd love to know your experience and what the process was like for becoming an EA, because that is very impressive.
Yeah. So to me, I think, well, two things I would say. I think a lot of people who are, especially not in the tax industry, uh, don't know that not all CPAs. I don't think most people really know what accountants do. Like, I don't think people understand that accountant is like a doctor. It's like they have so many different things that they can do. Like, you can go into the tax, you can go into
Payroll.
financial accounting, you can go into
Mhm.
auditing, you can go into forensic accounting. Like, there's so many different little fields and nooks and crannies in accounting that I don't think people really realize that. So when they hear CPA, they think tax. Um, but so when it comes down to a CPA, I think CPA is good, really good for marketing. Uh, if you hear if you're a tax professional and you want to go get a CPA, it makes a lot of sense, because people want to say my CPA files my taxes for me. They don't want to say I don't know. They want to say my tax preparer. Like, a lot of people really like the idea of having a CPA, but
How
at
about
the end of
that?
the day, I am not a CPA. Many of the tax professionals I work with throughout my lifetime are not CPAs. So I think that you can make a great career without a CPA, and I don't think CPA. I think it's just about educating people that there's more to tax professionals than just CPA, and not all CPAs are knowledgeable about taxes. Some CPAs go to other CPAs to get their taxes done. Some CPAs go to EAs to get their taxes done. Some CPAs are EAs. So it's a lot more complicated than that. But to more directly answer your question, I think that an EA, my process to get an EA was basically, there's 3-part exam. Uh, you have to study. One is the individual taxes. You have to study and pass 100 question test on individual tax returns, just like everyday people, things of that nature. They might get a little bit to business type stuff, but for the most part, it's like individual tax return type questions. And then after you pass, and actually you could take them in any order, but this is the order that I took them in. And then after that, I took the business tax return. And I just want to say this real quick. If I'm looking off at the corner, it's just for my screen. I have two screens here. One of my screen, I'm looking at y'all. I probably should look at the camera here. But the second thing was the second one was the business tax. And the business tax is obviously like S corporations, C corporations.
Schedule C?
Yeah.
Do you mean like Schedule C?
No, I mean like corporations, like
Oh,
a C
okay.
corporation would be like uh, Apple and all S&P
A big
500
company.
are pretty much C. But also you could be you can theoretically be a small C corporation, but that's not as common. But then also you have S corporations, which are still corporations. They're just taxed differently. And then you have partnership tax returns is another aspect of that on that business tax return section. So you have to know how partnerships are taxed. You have to know how S corporations are taxed. You have to know how C corporations are taxed.
Wow.
The Schedule C thing is more so an individual tax thing. There might be some type of questions like that on the business tax return because some of these things overlap to some degree. So there will be some overlap. But for the most part, the business thing is just partnerships, S corporations, C corporations. And obviously they'll get into LLCs, but LLCs are not an LLC is not a type of tax entity. It can be taxed in all of the ways that I just mentioned, as a sole proprietor, as a S corporation, C corporation, or partnership, depending on how you set up the business. So you just have to file an election for that. A lot of the times people will say, oh, well, I'm an LLC, so now I can get off these deductions, or you need to have an LLC so you can write off all these deductions. That's not true. You can write off pretty much any deduction that you can write off as an other type of business entities as you can on a Schedule C. It's not that different. But there are some important differences. I'm not going to say that, but like the basics are pretty similar. But after you pass the business part, that the second exam, or they call it C1, C2, and then C3 is about what do they call it? Representation or something like that. This is the one that I like. I think a lot of tax professionals like really don't really care that much as much about, but or not care much about, but they don't maybe
It's
they
not
probably
common.
focus more on the business and individual tax return stuff. Me personally, and maybe I'm just biased because I really didn't study that much for this one. I did a little bit of studying, and then I just went in there and I passed it. It was a lot simpler of an exam, and so yeah, that's that. And with the thing with the EA is that you can prove that you're a tax expert, and you don't necessarily need to spend thousands of thousands of thousands of thousands of dollars to get it like a CPA. And the thing is with the enrolled agent thing, it's it is a license from the IRS, and you have all of the rights in front of all of the rights that a CPA has in front of the IRS, and it's licensed by the federal government. So when you move, you can move to any state you want, and you don't have to worry about having to redo or like transfer your CPA license to another state because CPAs are regulated by the state. So I'm not saying a CPA is better than an EA or EA is better than a CPA. They're just two different paths in lives. But a lot of people do think that a CPA is better than an EA. And I guess it depends on what you're looking for. But if you're just looking for a tax professional, going to a good EA would be just as good as going to a good CPA, in my opinion.
I don't think anyone thinks that a CPA is better, but I just think it's a huge misconception because I hear people say, oh, well, if you want tax advice, talk to a CPA. But they don't realize that's just a general accounting term. That's not that doesn't mean they do taxes or that they're a tax professional.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think one of the things that I'm thinking about for me is like, should I go try to get a CPA just because that's the term that people are familiar with? And maybe they'll be more because at my job, so many times people will say, I want to talk to a CPA. Are you a CPA? I'm like, no, I'm an EA. And you try to explain it to them like, oh, well, this is what an EA is. There's a license from the IRS. we're tax experts as well. Not all CPAs, whatever. And they're like, I want to talk to a CPA. You know what I mean? So it's like part of me is like maybe I should just get a CPA so people won't be
No,
confused. But
no. I think talking about it and raising awareness and bringing credibility to it, definitely helps, right? Because you're clearly very knowledgeable. Anyone who is an EA is a bona fide tax expert. A CPA doesn't mean you're a tax expert. So,
exactly.
yeah, I don't I wouldn't. Once I found out the difference, I was like, why would anyone waste their time if they want to do taxes and they're passionate about taxes, why would anyone waste their resources becoming a CPA? It's preposterous to me.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on the logical side of that. Like, why would you do that? And but to me, that's the reason why I was like kind of weird about it. I was just like, to me, it just doesn't make sense to get the CPA when you have an EA and CPA is there's like maybe like 10% of it is related to tax when you actually have to take the test to get a CPA. It's like I heard someone say it's like 12.5%, whatever. The point is, such a small fraction of the CPA exam, but taxes, it's like even if you get an accounting degree, like that should pretty much cover more than enough of accounting that you would need for taxes. If you're dealing with business tax returns, maybe you need some accounting, but for the most part, you don't really need accounting, especially for individual tax returns. There are parts of like um, C corporation tax returns, S corporation tax returns that you need to have some accounting knowledge in order to properly fill out that return. But when it comes down to individual tax returns, there's absolutely no accounting. Well, I don't want to go that far. Technically, some people might consider tax as accounting by definition, but accounting in the sense where you're documenting debits and credits and things of that nature.
Proactive progression. I wonder if that's a sales terminology. How would you even get a CPA? Is it a long process?
Well, you went through the process, and I've done a lot of talking here, or you were considering going through the process. So maybe I'll let you have that one.
I was in the middle of it, and like Jerome mentioned, it's extremely expensive, and I was lucky that my employer was paying for it, which, for me personally, I think if anyone has opportunity to get free education through their employer, that's a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of. However, if you don't, if you have to pay out of pocket now in the year 2024, I would not recommend. What are your thoughts on that, Jerome?
I think that well, I was actually planning to make either a video or a live stream about this, but I do think that in nowadays, and I think society is going to have a long time to catch up to this logic. But I think that you can get like I believe this is my true belief is out there, putting it out there. I believe that you can be just as educated in our modern society with all of the tools we have at our fingertips. Even based off a lot of the things we had in, back in the 1700s, you could probably get pretty educated relative to people of their time, at least. But even maybe relative to some people of our time, like a Benjamin Franklin. But I think that if you use the tools at your fingertip instead of just using it for, like, watching nonsense on TikTok. If you use the tools at your benefit, you can get just as educated as someone with a college degree or a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, whatever, in that same subject. Maybe even a PhD, depending on the topic. Some topics are a little bit more harder to do that. Like I think it's harder to teach yourself the same knowledge that a medical doctor might have, but accounting, finance, and even biology. The reason why I say medical doctor is, because a lot of it is like they're doing like actual like work with patients, and like I don't know if it's even legal for you to go grab a human being and say, "Hey, let me do some experiments on you." But yeah. So to me, it's just like a lot of the knowledge is right here at your fingertips. If you just actually just go out there and grab it and use it, and you can be just as educated. Now, the question then becomes: will you be able to get a job uh, even without a degree? And I heard a statistic the other day. I don't know if it's true. Actually, I think I heard it from uh, I actually, for the first time in a long time, watched one of the podcasts from what's his name, Graham Stephan, and then he made a statistic. He said a statistic. I don't know if it's true, but he said like maybe like 40 to 45% of jobs don't even ask for a college degree.
I believe it.
And the job that I'm working at right now as a tax professional, it is I think it's a pretty good paying job, and it does not require you to have a degree. You will get paid significantly more if you are an EA or a CPA or a tax lawyer, or some type of attorney or whatever, in the realm of tax, but you don't even need those three. Me personally, I don't think I would be hesitant to allow someone who is not an EA or CPA or a tax attorney with knowledge in that specific area of tax, um, to do my tax return, just because at least I know with an EA, CPA, or they have continuing education, where a lot of the times, if you don't have one of those, you don't technically have to continue to educate yourself.
Changing gears a little bit, since you work with so many people and do taxes, I know a lot of people have small businesses. Do you recommend small business owners use QuickBooks?
When it comes down to like what type of like accounting software to you, I think a lot of the times when it comes down, depending on how small the business is, I think some small businesses just need to have some type of accounting software. They just need to do accounting in general, because you'd be surprised how many small businesses, like really small businesses, like they're like startups type things, have no accounting system at all. No accounting system. They don't even have a business bank account. Like, that is a surprisingly large percentage of business owners, especially if they're kind of just like don't really consider themselves as business owners. They kind of just consider themselves as like self-employed or contract workers. Like, they don't even have accounting. So I think a lot of people would just have an accounting system was a good place to start. But from there, I think you can use QuickBooks. That could work. If you could use, um, I think QuickBooks is probably a good software. I've never used QuickBooks before, but um, it's probably just fine to get the job done. I've heard good things about it, and I have done a little bit of reading on it.
FTX used QuickBooks, so it must be good.
Yeah, man. I actually heard that in the hearing. I don't know if you heard that in the hearing when they were like, I can't remember. One of the guys was like, they were using QuickBooks, and if like a big business shouldn't be using QuickBooks. But I'm like, I don't know if it does all the things that you need to do for accounting purposes. Why can't you use QuickBooks? Maybe my accounting knowledge is not as uh, good as it should be, but I don't know. I think if it does everything you need to do and it does it well, I think it can work.
That's hysterical.
But that was a scam company. But I mean,
Yes, and I actually saw that the SEC approved crypto ETFs. Did you see that?
I did not. I
A
did
little
not.
shocking. I think it's good because it's going to be regulated. I don't endorse crypto ETFs.
How do you feel about crypto?
Not a fan. I
Yeah.
feel like you and I have similar views on a lot of things, but no, absolutely not a fan of crypto. I think it's highly speculative.
Yeah. During crypto crazes rather, I usually get a little bit more quiet about my views on crypto, just because you won't have 100,000 crypto bros being like, bro, when I'm on my yacht, you're gonna be remembering me. And I'm like, bro, you're all right. You don't tell someone when they're in a bubble that they're in a bubble. Don't tell someone who's going through a manic situation like they're man. Like, don't, like, if someone is doing something crazy, they are never going to think that it's crazy. You can never tell someone that you're in a bubble and you're having bubble fever. I just I I don't do it anymore. During that same time period, I like, because I make finance videos and stuff like that. I will post on Facebook sometimes. I don't do that anymore, but I will post like links to it on Facebook. So sometimes people would reach out to me on Facebook about the last crypto phase. Like a girl was like, one of the girls I went to high school with, she messaged me. I haven't talked to her for years. She was like, "Well, what do you think? I made like $2,000-3,000 on this crypto or Dogecoin. It was. I was like, "What do you think I should sell it? Or what do you think I should do?" And I was like, I think I can't tell you what to do, but you might want to kind of like cut your losses or at least take the money you put into there off the table. Take the money that you put in there off or something like, but uh, I'm pretty sure it went up a bunch after that. So I probably looked stupid for a minute. Hopefully she sold it though, because she would be in a rough situation if she didn't right about now. As far as, I mean, it was only like $3,000, but for some people, that's their whole life savings. But yeah, I think crypto is mostly a tool for speculation, not necessarily. I think it could be interesting technology. It might lead to some interesting technologies down the line, but it's mostly a tool for speculation.
Absolutely. And earlier you were talking about penalties, and I wanted to ask you, is there a magic number for avoiding a penalty? Since you said that people could pay the maximum amount without having to pay a penalty. Is there a magic number, or does it depend on the situation?
It does depend on the situation, but there is somewhat of a magic number. It's more of a magic percentage, but I guess that's technically a number. And you're going to test my memory here, but it's like if you owe less than $1,000, generally you won't owe taxes. That's not 100% the case. Sometimes you will still owe taxes, but that's getting a little bit into the weeds. But generally $1,000, or if you pay 90% of what you owe this year, generally you won't owe taxes. Like I said, there's exceptions. Or 100% of the taxes that you owed, or that like and not the tax that you owed, but like the taxes that you had to pay last year. So when I say, sometimes when people say, "Well, I didn't have to pay taxes last year, I got a refund," that's not what I'm talking about. You still pay taxes last year, typically. There are some people who had a 0% or negative percent tax rate, but the vast majority of people have an effective tax rate above zero. You paid something in taxes. So whatever that number is, and for the life of me, I can't remember what number it is on the tax return. I think it's like 24, line 24, but I have to go back and check. But there's a line on your tax return that says how much taxes you actually gave to the federal government. If you pay 100% of that, of what from last year, and if you're above a certain income, 110% of that, then you won't have to owe taxes. Which is the reason why, for example, if someone who owes thousands of dollars might still not have to pay anything in taxes, I mean, owe any penalties. They literally tens of thousands. I've seen people owe tens of thousands of dollars and have to pay no penalties or interest on that money because they paid 90% of what they owed, or they paid 100% of what they owed last year. Um, so yeah, you can owe a lot of money as long as you follow that rule. So 90% of what you're supposed to pay this year. And like I said, there are exceptions. And let me just talk about the main exception that I'm thinking about, because I think it's kind of an important one. Uh, if you are, for example, self-employed and you have to pay estimated taxes for one reason or another, or if in any circumstances where the IRS requires you to pay estimated taxes or highly recommends it, uh, if your estimated taxes are not on time, if you pay all of your estimated taxes on December, because I'm going to outsmart the IRS, I'm going to hold on to my money all year long and just pay them in December. That's not going to work. Theoretically, you could do that with a W-2, because W-2 is considered even throughout the year, but that is still not something that I would recommend for people to try. And I don't know how much benefit that would give, but theoretically, since it's considered even throughout the year, you could pay no taxes for the first half of the year and then double the taxes that you pay for the second half of the year or the last quarter of the year. You can like quadruple it, and then you have extra money throughout the year and then pay that back throughout the year, and then it will be considered evenly distributed throughout the year. But that's not necessarily worth it, and some HR departments won't even allow you to do that.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. And then another thing that I wanted to bring up is I hear a lot of people saying, well, it's a write off. It's a write off. I'll just write it off. And the way they say it, they make it sound like it's free money. But I feel like that's a huge misconception. And kind of the way that I like to think about it is if I'm getting a deduction, I get maybe a 30% discount. Do you think that's a better way for people to view deductions, which separate from credits?
Yes, I think that's a lot more reasonable way to look at it. A lot of times people think that's the reason why it's such an important distinction between deductions and credits, because a lot of the times people think deductions are credits. They think the way that they think about what a deduction is, they think, well, I get $1,000 write off. They think that it's an actual tax credit, meaning they think it's a dollar for dollar decrease in their taxes. It's not. If you're on the 10% tax, if your top tax bracket is 10%, well, then that $1,000 deduction is only going to decrease your taxes by like $100. There might be some other variables that confuse that number, but generally speaking, that's how that would work. If you're in the 30%, your top tax bracket is, I don't know, 37%, then $1,000 tax rate might decrease your taxes about $370. But it's not, you are still net loss unless that thing that you're deducting helps increase your income or value of some asset that you have. That's the only way that uh, you are in a better position as a result of a deduction. Uh, Typically, as far as typically, standard deduction is a little bit different. But like as far as expenses for business expenses, it's more so what I'm thinking about when I said that.
Well, and I know a lot of people are working 1099 jobs. Maybe they're driving for Uber or Lyft, or my mom, she is a registered nurse and she works a few different jobs where she gets paid on a 1099. And she didn't realize that as a sole proprietor, someone who gets paid income on a 1099, you can take tax deductions.
Yeah, you can. And in that situation, definitely, especially when you go from doing something like when you go from a W-2 to a 1099, there might actually be things that you were already spending money on anyway that you can turn into a tax deduction. Like, for example, when I was doing Uber, you know, I'm paying car insurance anyway, but now that car insurance is tax deductible. Your mom, she's a nurse. If she's like a traveling nurse or like she goes to different people's houses, that same car that she's paying, that she paid for, if she, owns it completely, or if she has car interest on that car, like a car loan or insurance or whatever, she can now write that off. Generally speaking, if she's using her car for business, um, there may be a better to use the standard mileage rate, but at the end of the day, she could take expenses that she would already have and turn it into tax deductible expenses. Um, and even expenses that are incurred through the business. Through doing that, she can write off. Like a lot of the times, employees can't write off their expenses. If you're a W-2 employee at your on the federal level, at least you can't write that off. But if you're a 1099, you're going to have to pay more in taxes if you don't write things off because they're not holding back the Social Security and Medicare taxes that the employer usually pays. You have to pay that.
Which that sounds really scary. Can you break that down a little bit?
Yes. So basically, a lot of people don't realize, like their employer. You look at your W-2 at the end of the year, and you see they withheld, or your pay stub. They'll look at you see Social Security and Medicare taxes withheld, but that number that you see on there, your employer also paid that same amount in Social Security and Medicare on your behalf. If you're self-employed, you have to pay that other half because you're your own employer. So you have to pay both the employee side and the employer side. So typically it'd be like approximately like 6.2% in Social Security and 1.45% in Medicare that you would have to pay. If and the percentage might be slightly off, but is approximately that. And the employer basically pays the same thing. But then once you become self-employed, now you have to pay 15.3%. on approximately 92% of your net income from self-employment.
Wow. That's something to keep in mind. That's a big one.
Yeah, a lot of the times people will say, like I've had people, they ask like, "Well, how am I owing all these taxes?" I calculated everything right. I calculated exactly how much money I was going to make throughout the year, and I look at how much taxes I would have to pay. I was like, "All right, well, you're self-employed. Did you factor in self-employment tax?" And they're like, "What is self-employment tax?" That's where the number came from. That's why you owe more than you thought you did. You didn't factor that in, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like these are things that people just you know, no one taught you this. And even if they did tell, no one, like, it's not like they teach anything. Well, I hear they're doing it now, but growing up, most people didn't learn much about finance in school.
Yes, I completely agree with you. They definitely didn't teach them. But recently, I feel like in the last 1 to 2 years, they started teaching personal finance at the collegiate level.
Yeah, I heard that they're actually doing it even in some high schools. I think I have a family member who's a younger family member, and she was recently in high school. I think she just graduated recently, and she had a class. I remember specifically that there was like a class that they were giving for like personal finance. I don't know what they were teaching in that class. They could have been teaching complete nonsense for all I know. But like back in my day, or back in my day, but I mean, like, back when I was in high school, they did like balancing a checkbook, and I'm like, that's not personal finance. Like, I mean, that's like if you want to consider that personal finance, you might as well consider open up a I don't know. That's not really personal finance. Like I've never balanced a checkbook in my life. A lot of people have never balanced a checkbook in their life. It's that's not really modern personal finance. That's the closest thing I ever got to learning about personal finance in school.
I had the same experience, so I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Uh, Something I don't think I agree with you on, which is rare because, like I said, I think we share this a lot of the similar opinions on a lot of things. You're not a credit card fan.
No, I'm a credit card fan. I use credit cards all the time.
Okay.
I'm a big credit card fan, but I do think that some people are not responsible enough to have them.
For sure. For me, I like the less liability factor, versus using a debit card.
You mean like the company's more likely to help pay you back if you like someone steals money off your card?
Exactly, for security purposes. So, I believe with a credit card, if your credit card gets stolen and someone runs up charges, your liability is about $50. But if someone steals your debit card and has direct access to your bank account, your liability is infinite, right? They
Yeah,
could drain your account.
that is true. Some companies, some bank accounts have started offering like debit card protection, but as a general rule of thumb, that is one of the reasons why I do use credit cards myself. Especially with online purchases, I almost exclusively use, in so far as I can, use credit cards rather. I personally use credit cards. I just know that some people, despite all of the benefits, the odds are that it's going to lead to a more negative impact. If you look at the probability, if we factor in the idea of like you could get your credit card or your debit card information stolen or whatever, look at that as a possible way to drain their financial situation. And if you look at the possibility of them being bad with a debit credit card and doing illogical things with a credit card, uh, you factor all of those factors in, like what is most likely to lead to the worst outcome for most people. And I would say that for a lot of people, not everybody, a good percentage of people, credit card would lead to a worse outcome than if they would just not have had one, even factoring in the fact that their credit card information could get, or debit card information could get stolen. But I am all for credit cards if you're responsible with it. I'm actually like I usually use credit cards for pretty much every purchase that I have, and I would recommend anyone who is responsible enough to do so and not run up their bill to do so. But I just think that there are people out there that doesn't make sense to do so.
And that's a good point. So, what is your favorite travel or miles credit card?
You can answer first on that one.
For me, I personally like the Chase business cards because I am a business owner. I have a few different small businesses. Um, Sometimes it gets really hard to calculate the miles for with the travel cards. Sometimes cashback is easier, but I think that Chase does a really good job, and I'm a big fan of all of their cards. I wouldn't say that generally speaking, they're the best for travel and miles. I guess it depends on what you want to accomplish, but send me some more information about what you're wanting to accomplish with your traveling and miles, and I wanna know what you think, Jerome.
Uh, Me, I'm not as like particular about that. Usually, I just uh, for most part, my cards are cards that I have with either the bank that I use or the um, the bank that I use or the credit union I have. So I usually just go with that, and if they have a reasonable offer, 4% cash back on gasoline, or I have a travel card and a cashback card with one of my credit unions and one of my and then another two of those same kind with one of my bank accounts, and I just use that. I do think that it could be worth it. Well, let me rephrase that. I do think it's worth it to look further into it, but to me, I think that as long as assuming that you're responsible to using your credit card, I think that it's usually, as long as you have some credit card, you will be better off. But looking further into it probably would be a good idea. It's kind of like with savings accounts, like you know, this saving account offers 4.5%, but this offers 4.56%. It's like, it's offering you something better, but at least put money into savings account. That's the main thing we need to focus on.
Exactly, and sometimes I feel like people, they wanna maximize when they really just need to optimize a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. If they if you have a I think that first of all, it can be hard to optimize just because, like, what are you optimizing for? I think it's a similar question to what you just asked um, the guy. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. But if you're optimizing, it depends. Like, it really depends on what you're optimizing for, because that's the reason why it's kind of hard to say, like, what is the rational way to behave, because it really depends on what you're optimizing for, and then also at the same time, it depends on your personality as well, what suits you. Like, for example, with paying off your house, a lot of people will say, well, it doesn't make sense to pay off your house early. You should hold on to it. But it depends on what you're looking for in life. Maybe you want to pay your house off early because it just gives you so much less stress in life. And for some people, that is what they want their wealth for, is to have less stress in life. And that might make sense for that person. Um, I'm a big believer in this kind of thing, a little cheesy, but I think personal finance is actually personal to some degree. Some of it is just basic math, but to some degree, it is personal and psychological.
I completely agree with you. Personal finance is personal. And one of my biggest flexes is actually in 2020, I refied my house to a 15-year mortgage at 2.5%. So
That's amazing.
thank you. So a lot of people would say, well, that's like basically almost free money. Why would anyone pay off a 2.5% loan? But like you said, maybe some people don't want to have something hanging over their head. Maybe they want to be free and clear of any debt.
Yeah. It's kind of like I'm not sure if you ever heard of the book or like read like a synopsis or something like. But they call it. There's a book called Anti Fragile by Nassim Taleb, and and also the book Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. He has actually a set of books of like kind of like a catalog that kind of touch on the same similar topic. And one of the things that he talks about is being what he call anti-fragile, where it's like basically you can get better from uh adverse events or maybe things of that nature. And also, he talks about black swans in one of his books, where he says, there's some things that just pop up that you just can't prepare for. Like you just don't know that they're going to come.
Like the
And
pandemic?
exactly like the pandemic. And how many people, the banks were somewhat more, lenient and considerate given that. But like, how many people were, especially like people renting houses, like how many people were I mean, like renting houses to people, not like they were renting their own home or renting the place that they live, but like people who were renting houses that had mortgages, and the mortgage company was like, "Hey, you still got to pay us." That is something you got to consider. So there are these black swans, yes, as he calls them, that you just can't prepare for sometimes. And having a paid off house does give you more flexibility in dealing with severe adverse financial events, and they may not be specific to the globe, but rather specific to you. And how do you prepare for that, but putting yourself in a position where your expenses are as low as they could possibly be? And one of the ways you could do that theoretically is paying off one's house.
That's a great point. I could chat with you all night. I know it's probably pretty late. I think 10 o'clock Eastern, right?
Uh, Probably. I'm Central Time right now, so it's 9 o'clock where I'm at.
Oh, are you traveling?
No, I live in Omaha now. I try to get closer to Warren Buffett. You know what I mean? Trying to hang
That's
out with
so
them.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking of him earlier when we were chatting about crypto, and I was thinking all of the traditional investors that I respect, none of them would ever endorse crypto. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so obvious what it is, but people just don't want to admit it. It's so obvious a tool for speculation. I mean, yeah, it could be used for other things. Yeah, it's a very interesting from a technological standpoint, but from a financial investment standpoint, it is not really a true investment in the sense where it's really mostly for trying to get rich as quickly as possible. That's how people see it. They don't care about the technology. They just try to convince you the technology, so you buy it and their crypto goes up.
Well, what do you think about, the number one use case for people paying with crypto is, the black market?
That to me is kind of more like, I mean, if it wasn't, I mean, it's the same thing with cash. I guess they're also trying to get rid of cash as well. They're trying to make everything as digital as possible. Credit cards, debit cards, things of that nature. Apple Pay, Google Pay. So they
True.
are trying to get rid of cash as well. So let's not fool ourselves. But to me, I think that there's criminals are not as stupid as you people think they are. If they get rid of crypto and they get rid of cash, they're going to have some John Wick type underground currency. If you've never seen John Wick, that it has no meaning to you, but but they have some underground currency that they can use in exchange. It could be art. I mean, people use all. There's all types of ways that you can use some type of thing of value to exchange over thing. Maybe crypto makes it easier than what it would otherwise have been, but wiring money electronically was possible, that made it easier for criminals to do things illegal. And then they had to, the police and all that had to get smarter about how to track those down and where it was going to. And it's always a race when it comes down to criminals. But to me, that point is not necessarily that much of a mark against crypto to me. But that's less of a financial thing. I mean, as far as whether or not it's worth it as an investment to invest in.
Well, that's funny that you say that because, um, where was I going with this? Oh my god, this is hysterical. Yeah, just so many thoughts. I completely lost my train of thought, but anyway, I I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll lose my train of thought all the time. I'm actually surprised I didn't lose my train of thought more often here tonight. I did a couple times, but I'm like, going derailing a little bit. But I'm like, all right, come on, try to get me back on course here. But yeah,
This
that
is what
is.
I was gonna say, the point against, crypto as compared to AI. So it's really funny because AI came out about a year ago, right? And people were like, what are schools going to do to combat AI? Well, now there's all these like counter AIs where the schools are deploying their own AI to try to stop students from using AI. So it's like a battle between the AIs.
Yeah, that is. I mean, honestly, a lot of the things they have today in school, I'm like, I wish I had in school, or at least it was as prevalent when I was in school. Like audiobooks, even. Like, imagine instead of having to actually read, I don't know, uh, what is it, To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever, you could just listen to an audiobook on 2x speed, and then get it done in a day, in a afternoon or whatever. Like, I don't know. It seems like it would have been so much nice here, and now you have AI, Chat GBT. My goodness, homework would have been a breeze.
Absolutely. And that's a life hack, 2x speed. I just realized you can watch YouTube videos at 2x speed.
Yeah, I do it all the time, especially with educational videos that I want to get quickly, like something, and especially like tutorial videos when you want to see if it's BS. Now they don't have the dislike button anymore, so I don't know why they got rid of that. I'm kind of disappointed.
I know, and then I actually saw it somewhere, and, before I clicked on it, and before it sent, it said, "Your feedback will be shared with the creator," and then I felt a little bit bad.
Yeah, you talking about with the dislike button?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It definitely makes you feel bad when they start sending you messages. It's almost like they're trying to discourage you from using the dislike button. It's interesting.
Yeah, but some videos are a little bit clickbaity, and that is why I did stop watching a lot of Graham's videos because I think he's great, and I love the iced coffee podcast, but a lot of it was so clickbaity where I was like, "I can't because I just felt tricked and deceived."
Yeah, with his YouTube channel, his main YouTube channel, that was well, even with the podcast. Honestly, a lot of it. I don't know if it's still like that per se, but a lot of it was very heavy clickbait. But like his main channel was like super heavy. Like I think he had one video, his first video, like it was like I bought a Tesla for $1. And that's like when he saw the success of what clickbait can really do for his channel. And I think that he just kind of went off. Like I really like Graham Stephan did a lot for me and my channel insofar as I can say that my channel has anything worth having. Like a lot of that is due to the benefit that he gave to me. But at the end of the day, like his main channel, it is. I feel like now you think I'm stupid because you want me to click. You know what you just did to me. You think I'm just going to click on it because, and then also like I mean, I literally have, I literally have talked to him. Like I literally have had multiple conversations with him and his thought process behind, uh, you know, titles and thumbnails and or your titles and thumbnails. So to me, I just feel like I'm sorry, I can't do that. Like I want to watch. I would love to watch your videos, but I'm not doing this clickbait thing. Oh, the market is about to flip. The market is about to squeeze. I'm like, oh my goodness, bro. How is the market going to keep doing all these conflictions? And I mean, and also I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's healthy to be constantly looking at the market just popped. The economy just boomed. The economy just popped, boom, exploded. You know, I don't know. To me, it's like I get it, but to me, I don't blame him. I mean, listen, man. did it less clickbaity, maybe he makes $1 million less dollars a year. And you know, would I clickbait for an extra $1 million a year? Who knows? Probably not, but if it was presented to me like, hey, this is a thing, I don't know. What about you? Would you do that?
Probably not, because that's the reason why I can't watch the news.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I mean, when he would make when you watch the actual video, a lot of the times there might be it will be substance to the video, but it's just when you but it would just be like obvious clickbait once you watch the video. It's like there's substance to this video, but you clickbaited me, and I don't like that.
Yeah. And going back a little bit, you mentioned credit unions. I love to hear you say credit union because I feel like that's very underrated and that's a life hack.
Oh yeah, super life hack. Every every time I go for like every time I need to get a car, I mean, some people say typically it's better to buy in cash, but when I go through a credit union and they're offering me less than 3%, um, on and and can literally have a bank offering me 3%, and this is offering me less than 3%, like I'm probably going to go with that option. And then also they have other options if you need home loan. They usually offer lower rates. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yes, and I feel like a lot of people will not look there because, the big banks are so commercialized, and I actually know someone that they won't do business with the big banks because they think they're evil. I'd love to know your opinion on that.
If I think big banks are evil,
Yes.
let me put it to you like this. I think that people will often do things that for money that they would not otherwise do. And I think that like a lot of the times politicians and big bankers will get a lot of blame for that, and then the little guy will think they're so morally upright. But I mean, you go to your local car mechanic, and he's not that rich of a guy. Maybe he is. I don't know. You go to 5 different car mechanics, and 4 of them will tell you some things that you don't actually need. You got to go to 4 car mechanics to go find one that's actually an honest car mechanic. You got to go through 4 contractors to go find someone who's honest contractor. So it's just like I think this is the idea that this is unique to bankers. This is unique to I think a lot of people once they have bad incentives, they will do bad things. Uh, but more directly answering your question, do I think they're evil? I think not everyone who works for a bank is just evil, but there are definitely people there who have and done and will do evil things, depending on how you define evil. Uh, if you mean evil, just like things that are I describe as immoral, then yeah, there are definitely a lot of people at banks that are 100% willing to do immoral things. What about you? What do you think? Do you think they're evil?
I wouldn't say evil, but I know that, Wells Fargo, for example, they have broken the law and been
A lot.
fined. Yeah, and so that's questionable, and it starts raising some flags, and a lot of people don't realize, right? So I'm like, "Ooh, do I want, to do business there, or maybe I wanna rethink, where I'm taking my money?"
For sure. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of voting with your dollar. Like, I mean, I think that a lot of people say, well, you're not going to run Amazon out of business or you're not going to run these banks out of business. Yes, but you don't understand how this works. If their revenue is not going up and if their revenue goes up 5% and it was expected to go up 10%, is a huge panic. They're gonna try to figure out what's going on, what's going wrong. And if people start more actively voting with their dollars as much as they possibly can, well, then I think that would lead to these companies behaving better. Like, oh well, you donated $1,000 or $1 billion in the last 10 years to all these different campaigns so you can influence politics. Well, maybe we should stop going to your company and go to this little small company over here that is not doing that or can't do that. You know, and maybe that will stop having so much money in politics from these billion-dollar corporations. Uh, yeah, but to me, I think that if the incentive is there, like I don't know, to me it just seems like a lot of the times if if a lot of people were in the same position, you offer them $2 million to, I don't know, slap their mother in the face. How many people wouldn't do that? I think that's one of the interesting thing about Squid Game is that like you know I think it has a reflection on life a little bit that people will do crazy things for in exchange for money if they feel the incentive is there.
Absolutely. And I love when you share your point of view on everything, not only tax, personal finance, but all the little minutia, because I think you have such a unique point of view and I appreciate you sharing it.
Oh, thank you.
So,
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah.
yeah, I won't take up too much of your time because I know it's pretty late. But I want to do this again with you because I had so much fun, and yeah, your opinion is so unique, and it's not one that I hear a lot. It's not like cookie cutter answers. You always say something unexpected, and I really enjoy listening to it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I enjoyed talking to you as well. Hopefully, we do this again. This was entertaining for me, at least. Hopefully, it was entertaining for someone else other than me as well. Hopefully, it was entertaining for you. So I do enjoy this.
Absolutely, I have so many things I want to ask you and talk about, but I was trying to like stay on track and not um, go around too much. So thank you so much for your time.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, maybe we can do it again sometime. Tax season's about to get really busy for me, but we can still try to see if we can fit it in somewhere.
I am so glad you said that, because then I felt bad. I was like, "Oh, no, it's tax season."
Oh no, it wasn't bad though. But I mean, you chose a good topic. We started talking about tax, so that was always good. It's always good for me to get some because I'm always hard on myself about tax. That's one of the reasons why I was reading taxes most of the day. Is just like I'm always like I don't know enough. I don't know enough. I got to learn more. I got to learn more because it is you can get hit with so many different things in tax that you're just like, how do I not know that? Like I got to learn that. So I think this was actually pretty useful because it kind of got me to exercise my tax muscle a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jerome. I really appreciate your time, and you're so knowledgeable, so thank you so much for sharing some of your knowledge with me.
Thank you. You're knowledgeable as well. I hope you keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that. Okay, let's talk again soon, and thank you to everyone who has been watching the stream and anyone else who's gonna watch the replay.
Peace.